It brings up another question, if you could just address really briefly, and that's the one of partisan politics, which I think it's been something of a surprise for these students, having just been in class with me for 9 weeks, you know, but still probably seeing that I'm a screaming liberal, and Mike, who's known me longer, that I brought in 2 Republicans who not only I seem to like, but I seem to have voted for. And they're just like how, party politics in small towns.
Yeah, party politics in a small town, they exist somewhat for getting elected, perhaps, but political affiliation has played no role in my appointments. For instance, right now, the chair of the Board of Appeals is a Democratic woman, and she's been chair of that for a long period of time. I've appointed both Republicans and Democrats to the planning board, the Board of Appeals, and whatever. So it really does not play a role in decision making. And we can talk with one another. And even at the county level, politics, perhaps, party politics, perhaps play somewhat of a role, but people still listen to one another in Livingston County. You get up in Monroe County or over in Erie County.
Oh, did Maggie get reelected or Sandy?
What's that?
Brooks or who got elected?
Brooks. Yes, she was elected. And the Republicans and Democrats are doing what they're doing in Washington. One person says one thing and the other person says, well, I don't like that. And they just don't get along. And that is something that this kind of log jam that's taking place at the national level, and it kind of spills down to the state level, but fortunately it doesn't spill down to the local level.
Could you speak, however, to the local issue of student voting, which was an issue in one of your elections and may in fact have been an issue in last night's election?
Yeah, I personally am not in favor of students voting in local elections, and that is not my control at all. I argued against that when it was at the state level. There was a New York Conference of Mayors, and the New York Conference of Mayors was supporting students voting in local elections. And I said, it isn't right, and particularly you get something in Geneseo where there could be, if all the students registered locally, there would be more students than there would be residents within the village. And that took place down in New Paltz. A few years ago, they elected this very young guy, and it was as a result of student involvement. And the guy was just totally unqualified to be mayor, but because of whatever was going on in New Paltz at the time, I wasn't aware.
Didn't somebody try to challenge one of your wins because students had voted for you?
No.
Yeah. Well, at least Tom Mix talked about that a whole lot.
No, I challenged.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a series of students, and this would have been in about 1990 maybe, but there were students who had registered to vote who were directly connected to the other candidate. But when they filled out their forms to register to vote, it turns out they were all registered at home, and they said that they hadn't been registered. So they perjured themselves then, and we kind of had some, we had some prior knowledge that they were coming up, and they went up to vote as a group. And the attorney was there and said, here's the situation. If you vote, you have perjured yourself, and you're apt to then get a citation of some kind. I don't know what it is. It's a court order or something. They chose not to vote then as a result of that.
Yeah, one of the great myths of the Democratic unsuccessful Democratic candidates who run against you is that you assign the students in your classes to go out and vote for you. Yeah, I'm just saying, you know, I know that. And on some level they know that, but it's so convenient.
Yeah.
The other thing is, in 2000 and 2004, when they started the, I think, Global Vote Local movement, when Whitney Crispell and some of those kids were here, they had to put people like me at the polls to buffer between March Wilkie and the students, you know, the village people who didn't want those kids voting, who were working at the polls, and the kids who came in like, we're gonna vote. You know, and then there were some of us kind of throwing, have a coffee, you know, like, peace, you know, yeah. But it worked out great, and March Wilkie said she was so impressed with him after she saw him.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is a huge issue.
But, and again, the problem in Geneseo is that the numbers that just don't balance out. So that's why I have not been in favor, but students, and it turns out spring, elections are in the spring. And it turns out, and those dates are set by the state of New York, that have nothing to do with local choice. So there's March elections, and it turns out in most cases, it's when students are on break. But students can still, have registered, they can submit absentee ballots, but that's absolutely nothing to do with the village setting that policy. There had been some talk about changing village elections till June, and that's possible within the state. Avon has a June election time, and that would negate any student involvement. But for the most part, students could care less about who the mayor of Geneseo is. It's not something that, in most cases, you're much more interested in what's happening in your own hometown than you are.
Oh, I'd say the Lamron pretty clearly cared who the town supervisor was. That one-sided coverage.
Yeah, and actually, the last time I ran, there was a forum in Bailey Hall, and that's the only time, and that was attended by all of the candidates, and that was the only time I had a political presence on campus. I just didn't think it was right to, sometimes there'd be candidates down at the union, holding forums down at the union, and that kind of stuff. I didn't do that. I didn't think it was appropriate.
It is very hard to keep boundaries, and I think very important to keep those boundaries. I mean, you've got such a position of power at the front of a room.
But yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But I think that certainly voting in the fall elections, particularly when it's a national election, that certainly is very worthwhile. And statewide elections as well. It's the local things that I have trouble with.
Sorry. Do you think the hunt is a good use of the land in and surrounding Geneseo?
Well, the land that is used for the hunt is either in private hands or is part of the Genesee Valley Conservancy. And the Conservancy they have purchased 4,000 acres, have either been donated or that the Conservancy has been able to purchase. And that keeps the land then forever in the condition that it is once it's in the Conservancy. So that you can't have housing developments on Conservancy land. So in that way, it really is preserving the character of the community. And it just happens then that they're able to hunt on some of these things. But that's the landowner's choice. So yeah, I'd say it's good use of land. And literally, it's called a hunt. But if they ever find a fox, it's a rare time that they even see a fox, I think. And Will would be able to answer that a little bit more. But I think it's, for the most part, they're out as a group horseback riding. you know. So it's not really looking for a poor little fox that's being taken away from its mother or something like that. It's,
Bambi fox. Yeah.
so to answer your question, yes, I think it's good use of land, recreational purposes, yeah.
Since that complaint that you talked about, or the person coming to you 3 years ago, do you think that the issues with the cats have gotten better or worse? In terms of number?
Yeah, I'd say it's about the same. I don't know, if Jill will have a different take on that than I will, because there's suddenly a lot in her backyard. I don't see them, you know, and we're a block away from.
Cat-proof the barn.
Yeah.
Great expense, but, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and there are some cats in the backyard next door to us, but again, that woman started feeding them. She said, "Oh, I hate these cats," and then she puts a dish out on the back porch. Which I don't understand, but nevertheless. And I've seen some on Ward Place. There seems to be a group on Ward Place, kind of behind St. Michael's in that general vicinity.
That's a big dumping ground, you know, that whole, because there's so many student houses on.
But no, I think it's about the same. I don't see it getting worse, but maybe my eyes are closed, because you're not in my backyard.
Right.
Yep.